everybody, my name is Eric Hopkins and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're finding me for the very first time, please click that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content right here on this channel. So it's a sad day in the world of Hollywood. Yesterday it was announced that an iconic and legendary director of some of my favorite films passed away at the age of 91 years old. So let's go over here and check out the article from Deadline here. Richard Donner, director of Superman, Lethal Weapon, and The Goonies, has passed away. Richard Donner, the prolific Hollywood director and producer whose helming credits include some of the most iconic movies of the 1970s and 80s, including the Christopher Reeve starring Superman, The Goonies, and the Mel Gibson, Danny Glover buddy cop series Lethal Weapon, has died. He was 91 years old. Richard Donner passed away Monday, according to his wife, the producer Lauren Schuler Donner, and his business manager. No cause of death has been revealed. I mean, he was 91. That's all that, that's pretty much all the explanation you need. The Bronx-born Donner, a genial man with a booming voice, started his career directing for television. His TV credits include a laundry list of staple shows from the 60s, including Route 66, or Route 66 is probably the way you pronounce it, The Rifleman, The Twilight Zone, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Gilligan's Island, Perry Mason, and The Wild Wild West. His debut feature, X-15 in 1961, with Charles Bronson and a young Mary Tyler Moore, was followed by the 1968 crime comedy Salt and Pepper, starring Sammy Davis Jr. and Peter Lawford, and 1969's Lola with Charles Bronson and Susan George. He segued to films full-time with 1976 spooky The Omen. That led to 1978's Superman, the original superhero movie that starred Christopher Reeve as the Man of Steel, along with Margot Kidder, Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, and Ned Beatty, who recently just passed away, if I remember correctly. The Warner Brothers blockbuster, with a budget of about $55 million, grossed more than $300 million at the global box office. The first movie tentpole based on a superhero comic character, it scored 3 Oscar nominations and won a Special Academy Award for its visual effects. It also cast the die for the superhero franchise Space, now dominated by the Marvel Cinematic Universe and DC Universe of films. A dispute with the producers famously resulted in Donner taking his name off directing Superman 2 when Richard Lester was brought in after Donner had shot the majority of the movie. A director's cut of the film with many of the excised Donner directed scenes was released in 2006. So, DC has had a history of this, no doubt about that. Zack Snyder, anybody? By that time, however, Donner had moved on to other blockbuster successes in just about every genre, directing Jackie Gleason and Richard Pryor in comedy The Toy from 1982, and in 1985 helming both the medieval period adventure Lady Hawk and the seminal kids adventure pick The Goonies, which is pretty much a classic by many people's standards at this point. So, yes, this is very, very, very sad news. Anytime anybody dies, it's sad news to begin with. But Richard Donner was a legend in his craft, and he will forever be missed. Obviously, myself personally, I never watched The Goonies as a child. I think if I would have seen it when I was young, I would have liked it much, much more. But the thing was, I didn't see it till I was in my 30s. So it was kind of, it wasn't the greatest film to me personally. Because, again, if I'd have seen it as a kid, I think that would have been the major difference and deciding factor of whether or not I was going to like The Goonies or not. I'm not personally a big fan of it just because of the time when I saw it. If I grew up with it, I would think differently, I'm sure. So I'm glad it's there for all you kids who grew up with it. Unfortunately, I was just I was very late to the party in that regard, I suppose. But as for his other 2 big films that he, actually 6 films, I guess, if you want to call it that, Superman 1 and Superman 2, obviously, as I mentioned, Zack Snyder has recently had a run-in with, DC when it comes to, his version of the Justice League film being cut up and then obviously being taken over by Joss Whedon, who ended up reshooting probably about 60-70% of the film or something like that. And of course, Whedon's cut didn't do very well. And of course, Zack Snyder's cut was the better version that we finally got on HBO Max. So go check it out there if you've not seen it yet. Much like that situation, though, Richard Donner had the same situation when it comes to Superman 2, when Richard Lester took over when he, butted heads with the studio then. And of course, those of us who've seen the Donner cut of Superman 2, most people would agree, I think, that film is the better version of Superman 2 as well. I just think it had, much, much better stuff in it from beginning to end. Really, the story just made more sense. Not only that, he's obviously the director of all 4 of the Lethal Weapon films starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. That iconic buddy cop, movies is some of my favorite, in the genre. I mean, obviously, people have their opinions about Mel Gibson today, but at the time, Mel Gibson, it was one of the films I believe that kind of led to his successful career. And of course, he's hilarious in those films, and those are great action movies to begin with. And Danny Glover is just as good in those films. So I'll always have a special place in my heart for the Lethal Weapon series. I know at one point they were talking about doing Lethal Weapon 5 with Mel Gibson and Danny Glover returning. And, of course, even Richard Donner was going to return, if I remember correctly, to film that movie. Obviously, that may or may not happen now. If it does, it's going to have to be with a different director for sure. But I honestly think that Lethal Weapon 4 is a good stopping point. I thought that film ended in such a good place. There's really no need for Lethal Weapon 5. But if they go to see, or, they make it, I'll probably go see it personally, just out of curiosity for sure. But in regards to that series, though, I'm very thankful that Richard Donner gave those movies to us. Definitely on the R-rated side of things, but me personally, that doesn't bother me or anything like that. But yeah, so it's always hard to hear this kind of news from anyone, but especially someone who has touched your life personally, even though you never met them, in regards to their work. So it makes it even more difficult for us fans who enjoyed his work. And of course, Christopher Reeve, the original Superman, if it was not for the original Superman film 1 and 2 and even 3 and 4 weren't really good. Obviously, Richard Donner was not involved with those projects, so that might explain why those 2 films were not real good. But if it wasn't for Superman 1 especially, we would not have the Marvel Cinematic Universe today. We would not have any of the DC movies we had today. It was the first film that I can remember, and I believe it was at the time, there's no doubt about it, it was the first film that made us believe as an audience that superhero films could work, and I'm sure it showed studios that superheroes films could work, because after the Superman films, we got Michael Keaton's Batman in 1989, and we got a few movies that kind of flopped, but then we got the X-Men films, which Richard Donner was also a producer of. I believe he executive produced the first X-Men film, and his wife, obviously Lawrence Schuler Donner, is the one who's behind all of the X-Men films over at Fox. She was a producer on those films. So if it wasn't for Richard Donner, we would not have the comic book genre today. So for that alone, I am eternally grateful, because I love those films. They were some of the reasons I love movies and the theater-going experience in general. So for that, I thank you, Richard Donner, for everything you've done in your life, and thank you very much for giving us these memories, and you will be missed greatly. So, but the real question here is, guys, what do you guys think about director Richard Donner? What are your thoughts on his life and career? Please comment down below. Let me know some of your memories of films that he's made, or whatever you might want to discuss about the great director here. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content right here on this channel. And until my next video, guys, take care.
Boogie.